Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. We are focusing on the line of actual control and the de-escalation and disengagement that is currently taking place. Yes, there have been more updates coming in. Let's take a look at that development. Sources tell us that after the structures that have been removed at Depsang and Demchok, there are some half a dozen of them. The line of actual control patrolling process is going to be resuming soon. The first de-escalation has already happened at Charding, where Indian troops have moved to the west and the Chinese troops have pulled back to the eastern side of the border. The 5 tents have been dismantled. There are 10 more that remain. China has also reduced vehicle presence at the line of actual control is what we are getting to know. General on the telecast with me, Ajay. Shed more light. We're getting to know line of actual control. These are the 2 points, Depsang and Demchok, where there have been a number of these tents and temporary structures. The process of removing them has already begun.
Megha, yes, this is a major development which basically has taken place on the line of actual control, and after the Galwan incident in which 20 soldiers they attained martyrdom while giving tough fight to the Chinese soldier, and they have also killed more than 40 soldiers of the Chinese troops over there during the clashes. Talks was resumed and talks was continually taking place. Even after that, that there were several incidents in where some incident of incursion has taken place, whether it was a Pangong or in Arunachal Pradesh as well. But talks was continuously taking place, and now the fresh development says that in next few days, after both the countries and troops have agreed for the disengagement process to begin, and it is expected that in next few days this disengagement process will start taking place. And according to our information, Chinese troops, they have also vacated their vehicles which was there on the line of actual control, and they have also started removing the temporary structures. Both the forces have started removing the temporary structure from the line of actual control, and in next few days they are expecting that soon they'll be able to start further action, which is a patrolling between on the line of actual control, which was taking place pre 2020.
Okay, all right, stay on with me, Ajay. Joining me on the telecast is also Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. Also with me is Major General Gigi Dwivedi. Sir, I start with you, General Dwivedi. Now, the process has commenced as per sources. There were, as we spoke about, a dozen odd temporary structures and tents that have been set up for the last 4 years since 2020 skirmish that had taken place there, in Depsang and in Demchok. Some of them have been removed. The patrolling will happen soon after. How do we estimate how long will it take for patrolling to start off?
Development, because this standoff since May 2020 there was almost no go, and only very partial disengagement had taken place, because we know that Chinese had come in May 2020 with a very large force of almost 3 divisions. So what has happened is that on the eve of this agreement, which have been signed on the 21st between the two co-commanders, is that before this agreement the ground situation was that at Depsang and at Demchok there was no disengagement, while disengagement did take place on the north bank of Pagongso, as also at PP14, that is Galwan, and Gogrand Hot Spring. Having done multiple tenures here, I can give you what exactly the ground situation would be as this disengagement is taking place. First and foremost, when the two sides, troops, are face to face, that means they are almost a handshake distance. The first point is that they need to move back so that there is no either incident by design or default. So therefore, this is the first step that is taking place, that you remove little habitat, certain blockades are there, certain obstacles have been put up, so that you gradually disengage. Engagement can be, depending upon the ground, a kilometer, 2 kilometers, even more. Then second step is that you begin to de-escalate. That means behind the front line troops, there are always the troops which are the backup troops, the second tier troops. Now that becomes the de-induction. I think that is going to take time. Now, as far as patrolling is concerned, as I brought out in the 3 locations, that is the PP14 Galwan area, Bogra Hot Spring, and on the Pangong Tso, they had created buffer zones.
Right.
That means the erstwhile points, erstwhile PPs from PP10, that is on Depsang side, and PP60 in Demchok side, they had now created buffer zones in these 3 locations, and we were not able to patrol the erstwhile patrolling point, and especially at Depsang, the PP10 to PP13, we were not able to patrol because the Chinese were not allowing us. And similarly in Demchok area, in the PP of 65, 62, 63. Now we will have to see as to what is the next step. Next step is, can we go back to the patrolling of erstwhile patrolling points, or there will be new protocols? Will the buffer zone be dismantled? All this is to be seen, but all I can say is a positive step, but it's going to take long time to implement it, because both the sides will always ensure wait and watch, and no one wants to lose the tactical advantage.
Right.
And my last point is, we got to take the Chinese, because Chinese speak something and do something on the ground. Mega.
Okay, all right. There is communication that happens on a daily basis of the local commanders that are stationed on both sides of the border, from the Chinese side and from the Indian side as well. There is constant communication. They at this point of time are exchanging notes. How many of their troops have retreated? How many of those tents and temporary structures have been removed? And if it's just a question of about 12 of these structures and tents that had been established and now they are going to be dismantled, and 6 of them have already been dismantled. So do you think this exercise could be completed in just about a couple of days?
Thank you, Megha. I think so. It wouldn't take very long, because what's very important is that one is after discussing and after such a long years of negotiation, almost about you can say 19 rounds of WMCC, primarily only for this after what had happened in 2020, about 21 rounds of the corps commanders talk, and now we'll be able to walk the talk, and that is something very important. Now what happened in the past, for why they did, for what they did for the last about 4 years along the LAC, is something which they have to introspect, because let's now look more positively as to what things are going to unfold as the time comes. It's interesting. It's very important also, because when you can patrol, as what the patrol points are already there, that itself ensures that both the sides, because there are, what I understand from the press also, that the agreement is that they will be patrolling twice a month. At the same time, each party would be informing one another of it. The strength wouldn't be more than 15 and things of those kinds. That's a very good sign, because all these things, the patrolling points which were there earlier, which we would be doing it, but well, especially at Depsang, that little obstruction from Y junction to Bottleneck, Butse Nala, where they had not wanting us to do it, that is those what General Devedio talked about, 10, 11, 12, 13, those patrol points over there. Once the disengagement has taken place, which will take some time, I'm sure, I have no doubt in my mind, that at least there will be no tension. That's something that's very, very important. When you are along the LAC and if there are obstructions and if the tensions are there, if the troops don't see, rather if there is some kind of, indulging fist fighting and things of those kinds that happened in 2019 and finally leading to what happened at Galwan, is bad. And definitely, as what seems to be perturbing and very, very difficult to understand, why did they do what they did? And especially the incidents were going bad after 2017. What happened at Doklam, and thereafter then continuously the repercussions were being felt at Depsang, Demchok, and you found that your Galwan, that is PP14, then 15 at Hot Spring, then 17 and 17 Alpha at Gogra, all this. But now, once the patrolling resumes, it may take some time, because after all, the commanders on ground have to decide. It's a very, very good sign. Excellent thing, because it leads to no tensions and no fist fights.
All right. Yeah. Let's in fact take a look at these satellite images that we have procured over the years since 2020 Galwan clash happened, and this is the picture on your screens, and we'll just put it out for you. 2022, the Chinese build up in Pangong Tso. Now this entire area that has been marked were Chinese establishments, deployment of troops. There were bunkers that had been set up. There was tankers that had been brought in. There was complete control of this area that had been done by China. Taking a look at the second image where Chinese build-up in Pangongso that took place. This is in 2024, and how when we take a look at this test track that has been built through this satellite image, that can be at this point of time inferred. There are armed vehicle covered parkings that have been set up, there are underground fuel and munition bunkers that have also been built up. Now, amidst these figures that we take a look at, this is, as I said, 2020, this Chinese build-up that took place in 2021. And if you take a look, if you make these comparisons over the years, this control of territory along the line of actual control, particularly in Depsang and Demchok, has only been increasing. The area of jurisdiction of the Chinese PLA in these areas had increased, and now finally retreating of troops that will eventually happen. But the first step is disengagement that has already been initiated now after the talks that took place just within this week, in the beginning of this week, and after the Prime Minister met Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. There seems to be some sort of a rapprochement that is taking place between the two sides. General Dwivedi, now the next step, obviously the concern that we have is the demilitarization, and very important to note that there are some 50,000 of our troops that are stationed along the line of actual control in the freezing cold for the last 4 years. Can a movement happen and can we escalate this and you know, ensure that this is done at a very fast pace in a very limited time for you know, primarily not just for strategic reasons, not just for military reasons, but also the kind of inconvenience that the troops have had to face over the last several months?
Well, Megha, firstly, you have brought out some good photographs of the Chinese build-up. The two things are very important. First and foremost, Chinese have used this 4.5 years to build up the infrastructure in a colossal manner. In fact, when I was a post commander at Lukum, we used to go right up to Kodak Fort. And you know, in 2021, 2022, Chinese made 2 bridges there to connect up northern and southern bank, because when we occupied Kailash range, the Chinese reaction was very slow, because they could not move the troops. They have to come all the way by Dudok. And therefore, Chinese have gone in a very big manner to build up infrastructure, military infrastructure, not only in Ladakh, but all along the line of actual control. So that I don't think they are going to ever dismantle, because that is what they have created as a strategic infrastructure. As far as tactical infrastructure is concerned, this is basically very close to the line of actual control. Some of them could be dismantled, but it all depends. But let me tell you a very interesting thing about the armed forces. We are very quick to deploy, but we are very, very calibrated, very, very considerate when we have to pull back. And this happens very gradually, because both sides look at each other, and it is only step by step, because no side wants to give away the tactical advantage. So therefore, this process ironically is going to take some time, because it's not going to happen as so soon as deployment takes place. And the second point is, we have to wait and watch about the Chinese. I myself have been defense attached there, commanded my forces at multiple times against China. We cannot take their words for granted.
Right,
we
absolutely.
have to confirm what is on the ground.
Yeah.
And that is what the military commanders on our side will be very, very careful, that we do not actually get into any trap, and we move as per the Chinese movement. And all I can say, this is going to take time, and this actually because of the mistrust that we have about the Chinese.
Okay, all right. Also on the telecast, let's quickly also address, there is more information pouring in as per sources. Now we are understanding that the Chinese forces have reduced their vehicular presence in Ladakh border as well, in a movement aligned with recent disengagement steps. These vehicular presence has been reduced. This has helped in further lowering the tensions between the two countries. General Kulkarni, is India going to mirror the action taken by China, removing of the military vehicles, the tankers that had been deployed in this area?
See, definitely the entire thing, as I said, we are walking the talk. So are the Chinese, is what we have always been insisting, mutual trust, mutual sensitivities and mutual respect. With that, the Chinese would be pulling back, the Indians would be doing the same. So all these petrol points will have ensured that there would be no fresh constructions coming along. And wherever the Chinese are along where the obstructions were there, they would all pull back. I don't see any difficulty, not at all, because all of it, we've seen it with our own eyes. We've been doing the patrolling over there, so we know it is not difficult. And the very fact that they would be pulling back from all these 60, 70 petrol points that are all along, I think that itself is a good sign, because the disengagement that takes place, you don't see, there's no eyeball to eyeball confrontation. Everything is, will be sort of put it down on paper, primarily because how many times would we be patrolling, who's informing whom, so everything will be absolutely structured. And that itself is a big thing. What they would be doing in their own areas, because obviously a huge amount of infrastructure has come up, well, that would take long time. But disengagement, the first very step of disengagement will lead to virtual, I would say, no tension. And if there is no tension along the LAC, that is the first step to ensure peace and tranquility, which will prevail along the LAC. And then further on, slowly and steadily, as the time passes, I'm sure both the countries will respect each other's sensitivities and ensure that nothing of this kind happens.
Okay, all right. General Dwivedi, these two very sensitive areas, Depsang and Demchok, India was not allowed to patrol these areas even before the 2020 Galwan attack that took place. How do we negotiate patrolling rights with China?
The importance of Depsang Plateau has actually increased multifold. Because when I was battalion commander in Siachen, that time we did not face any threat from the Karakoram side. But over a period of time, Chinese have become very sensitive about the Karakoram Pass. Secondly, with the Shaksdom Valley, their presence there, their collusion between Pakistan and China, and the POK angle, and more than that, the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which is passing through the POK. Therefore, this area has become very, very sensitive, and that is one of the reasons that why Chinese had come in a big way in this area. In fact, 62 was the initial shots were fired in the Depsang area, in the Karakoram area. Second point is the Demchok. Again, it leads into the Indus Valley. It's a country where you can apply mechanized forces, and that's why Chinese also were very sensitive about it. The point is that this area we need to now look at more critically, because of the new development that has taken place over a period of time, and we must insist that we should be able to patrol from patrolling point 10 to patrolling point 13. When I was employed in this area, we rather went all the way to Karakoram Pass. So therefore, I don't think that we need to leave it halfway. We need to take it as a pre-2020 April status quo, and that is what we intended. That was what our aim was, that we want to restore status quo, and that we should go all out to achieve it. And the second point, very important point is that we need to ensure that Chinese don't do it again, because you can't trust Chinese. The goodwill since 1962, we have faced it, that we keep repeating that don't go by the Chinese word, don't take it for granted, don't lower your guard, keep it up. Yes, we will like to have goodwill, we like to have normalcy, but that doesn't mean that we become complacent.
Yeah, you've mentioned that. Sir. General Kulkarni, now when such actions are taken from the Chinese side and we decide to mirror them, there were in fact areas of friction along the line of actual control even before Galwan 2020. How do we resolve those? Are we to wait first for a status quo to be built that was before April 2020 and then work our way backwards as to the other issues that we have time and again raised with China? And what is the hope of getting our way with discussions and dialogue?
Megha, I would look at it this way. There are all, the kind of institutional measures that are already instituted, and primarily after the 1993 agreement. There are various kinds of things which I would want to go on, the banner drills and things of those kinds. But obviously now with the new system there would be new measures in force. You take it that there will not be any tension along the LAC if we follow the disengagement which has been accepted and is being addressed by both the countries. That itself is the very first step. And I don't see at all, even in places like Demchok and all, it's very, very clear. You see each other so nicely. Even at Depsang, going to Karakoram Pass is just not a problem at all. So there is nothing like that that can't be done. It has been happening. We all have been doing it. And once it is structured and once the whole thing comes up, once they disengage, I'm sure the military commanders there, we've been having so many corps commanders meetings, things will get resolved, and there's nothing. Unless you have to adhere to the talks that have taken place, you have to adhere to the kind of structure now that would be put down in writing as to who would be patrolling when. There will be no constructions along. How long would they be taking, whether vehicles are permitted or you are walking along where certain areas, because certain obstructions were coming up in Depsang. Again at Depsang, even despite the obstructions, it is not that you couldn't see anything. They are plain. The word is Depsang plain. You can see from great distances what's happening everywhere. Similarly at Demchok, you are right, mirror to mirror facing each other. You know exactly where the Charding Nala is, who's on the other side, where is the hot water spring, everything is known. So nothing to worry. I think, as I see it, yes, there will be no tension. Pulling back would be an ideal situation, and we revert back to our this thing, and a new institution, new kind of measures once in place. You will find that there is no tension, no fist fights, everybody will confine to their areas, and so be it. If we can go around all our patrolling points, I think it's a win-win situation for both India and China.
Okay, also, General Trivedi, now looking forward, especially when the airspace that has been taken up by China, that is along the border in Tibet, that also causes a worry militarily for the India, because this is an aim for the Chinese to keep us on our toes all the time. How do we manage that? How do we further strengthen our borders through infrastructure and deployment of troops and setting up our own airspaces and air bases, and even national highways that will ensure that there is equipment, troops and free flow of it that happens?
Well, Megha, Chinese have militarized Tibet, especially in the last 4 years. Of course, they started all the way in mid-50s, and when 62 aggression took place, they had done enough militarization of Tibet, but more from the logistic side. You know, Xi Jinping visited Lhasa in July 2021, and he made a very important statement. He says Tibet has to be the iron shield of China, because China is very worried about Tibet because of two reasons. One is the political stability, and second are the rich resources that Tibet has, the water resources, the mineral resources, and the third point is, of course, it has border with India. Now, the very systematic militarization of Tibet has taken place in three particular areas. One, very rightly brought out, that airfield, because one of the weakness of Chinese was that they were not able to deploy the Air Force assets because of the certain restriction of height and also the airfields. So they have upgraded 10 airfields. They have built up the railway lines right up to Shigaze, and they are building up close to Nepal. They have built the pipelines. So therefore, Tibet has been militarized, I think, colossally.
Okay.
The second point you said that how we respond. I am sure our military commanders, our Air Force commanders are well aware of all that is going on, and they will be able to take countermeasures. But the point is, Chinese have an edge on two very important areas. They have the better aircraft and the better in numbers, and secondly, their missile and rocketry is ahead of us, and this should be our concern, and I am sure we should be able to bridge this gap in time to come. Maybe.
Okay, all right. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast and sharing your views. Very important developments coming in from the line of actual control, and we'll keep a close eye on it for the coming days, because after these initial steps have been taken by both the sides, very important for demilitarization to take place to ensure that there is peace that is restored in this tension-ridden area of the eastern border of India. Thanks for watching NewsX.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.